Welcome to Facts Repo, where we uncover the most fascinating and bizarre stories from history. Today, we're diving into a conflict that sounds like a joke but was all too real. In 1932, the Australian military, armed with machine guns and battle-hardened soldiers, declared war on a population of large, flightless birds. And incredibly, the birds won. This is the hilarious and true story of the Great Emu War. The tale begins in the aftermath of World War I. Thousands of Australian veterans were given land in Western Australia to farm wheat. It was a government scheme meant to reward them for their service and boost the country's agricultural output. For a few years, things seemed to be going well. But these new farmers soon faced an unexpected and formidable foe. A massive army, 20,000 strong, was migrating into their farmlands. This wasn't a human army, but an army of emus. These large, tough birds, driven by a dry season, were migrating from the central regions of Australia towards the coast. They discovered that the newly established farms were an absolute paradise. There was abundant water meant for livestock and endless fields of delicious, ripening wheat. The emus, in their thousands, descended upon the farms. They didn't just eat the crops, they trampled them and broke down fences, creating gaps that allowed other animals like rabbits to enter and cause even more destruction. The farmers were facing an ecological and economic disaster. The veterans, having served in the Great War, were not men who backed down from a fight. They tried to fend off the birds themselves, but the emus were too numerous and surprisingly resilient. Desperate, they appealed to the government for help. A delegation of these soldier settlers traveled to meet with the Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce. They made a peculiar request. They wanted the military to deploy machine guns to deal with the emu menace. Given that these were veterans making the request, and the political pressure was mounting, Sir George Pearce agreed. He saw it as a potential training exercise for his men and a good public relations opportunity. So, the stage was set for one of the most absurd military operations in history. The war was officially declared. The Royal Australian Artillery was tasked with the mission. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery was put in command of the operation, along with two soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. Their primary weapons were 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan seemed simple: drive out to the farmlands, find the large flocks of emus, and mow them down. The military expected a swift and decisive victory. The first engagement took place on November 2, 1932, in the district of Campion. The soldiers spotted a flock of about 50 emus. This was their chance to make a strong opening statement. They set up their machine gun and prepared to ambush the birds. However, the emus were out of effective range. So, the local settlers tried to herd the flock towards the waiting gunners. The emus, rather than panicking into a neat group, split into smaller, fast-moving units, running in all directions. Major Meredith's men opened fire, but the erratic movements of the birds made them incredibly difficult targets. After a burst of gunfire, the emus had scattered, with very few casualties. A short while later, a second opportunity arose. A much larger flock, estimated at over 1,000 birds, was spotted near a local dam. This time, the soldiers were determined not to fail. They set up their machine gun and waited in ambush. As the birds approached, the gunners held their fire, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash a devastating volley. But just as they were about to shoot, the Lewis gun jammed. By the time they cleared the stoppage, the emus had vanished into the bush. Major Meredith was beginning to realize that this was not going to be the easy target practice he had envisioned. The emus were not like a disciplined army that would march in formation into the line of fire. They were masters of guerrilla warfare, without even knowing it. In his official report, Major Meredith noted the emu's uncanny ability to absorb bullets. He wrote, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." The soldiers found that even when hit, the emus would often just keep running. Their thick feathers and tough hides provided a surprising amount of protection, and their sheer stamina was astounding. The military's tactics were proving completely ineffective. One of the most infamous attempts involved mounting one of the Lewis guns onto a truck. The idea was to chase the emus down and fire from the moving vehicle. What followed was more of a slapstick comedy routine than a military maneuver. The chase was a disaster. The truck couldn't keep up with the surprisingly fast birds, which can run at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour. The ride was so bumpy over the rough farmland that the gunner couldn't get a steady aim. At one point, an emu got tangled in the truck's steering gear, causing the driver to swerve and crash through a fence. After firing hundreds of rounds during this chaotic chase, they had managed to kill a grand total of perhaps a dozen birds. After nearly a week of this war, the military had used over 2,500 rounds of ammunition. The official body count was a matter of debate, with reports ranging from a meager 50 to perhaps a few hundred emus. Considering there were 20,000 of them, it was a statistical failure. News of the military's struggle against a bunch of birds reached the media, and it became a source of national and even international ridicule. The press had a field day, with one conservationist wryly commenting that the emus had invented guerrilla tactics while on the run. Facing mounting criticism and a clear lack of success, the Minister of Defense ordered a withdrawal on November 8. The first campaign of the Great Emu War was over. The emus had won. However, the problem hadn't gone away. The emus, emboldened by their victory, continued to ravage the crops. The farmers, now even more desperate, renewed their pleas for assistance. In a surprising move, the government authorized a second attempt. Major Meredith and his men were sent back to the field on November 13. This time, they were determined to be more effective. The second campaign saw slightly more success. The soldiers had learned from their mistakes. They engaged smaller groups and ambushed them at closer ranges. Over the next month, they managed to kill nearly 1,000 emus. But it was still a grueling and inefficient process. They used almost 10,000 rounds of ammunition to achieve this result, meaning it took, on average, 10 bullets to kill a single emu. It was a costly and unsustainable operation. By mid-December, Major Meredith was recalled, and the military campaign was officially over for good. While they had culled a small portion of the emu population, the vast majority remained. The ecological problem was far from solved. In the end, the government realized that fighting nature with machine guns was a fool's errand. They turned to a more practical, albeit less dramatic, solution. A bounty system was introduced, which proved far more effective over the long term. Stronger, more emu-proof fences were also constructed, which helped to protect the farmlands. These measures, implemented over the following years, finally brought the situation under control. The war was over, and humanity had learned a valuable, if embarrassing, lesson. The Great Emu War stands as a bizarre footnote in military history. It's a perfect example of human hubris and a powerful reminder that military might is often useless against the forces of nature. The Australian military, which had fought bravely in World War I, was outmaneuvered by an army of flightless birds. It's a story that highlights the complex relationship between human settlement and the natural world. The conflict wasn't born of malice, but of a clash between the needs of farmers and the survival instincts of a native species. It serves as a lesson in why we shouldn't fight nature, but rather learn to coexist with it. Thank you for watching this episode of Facts Repo. If you found this story as incredible as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing facts from history. We'll see you next time.